We come to this feed for magic. We come to the Real Lovers podcast to laugh, to cry, to converse. Because we need that. All of us. That indescribable feeling we get when the music begins to fade. And we go somewhere we've never been before. Somehow, heartbreak feels good in a place like this. Our hosts feel like the best of all of us, and discussions feel perfect and powerful. Because here, they are the Real Lovers Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Real Lovers Podcast, the only podcast here on the internet that is watching all of the movies in the Letterboxd Top 250, and I don't know who I am anymore. Just kidding. My name is Marley Silverbrand. I'm your host, as always, and joining me today is the internet's favorite M. Night Shyamalan superfan and David Lynch strong supporter. You can watch his videos everywhere on TikTok and Instagram with the username Peyton Pictures. Peyton, welcome to the Real Lovers Podcast. How you doing today, Peyton?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to talk about this. This is one of my favorite films. I don't know if I'm the internet's favorite M. Night Shyamalan super fan, but I'm certainly trying to spread the good word.
Well, speak it into existence. I always sometimes I like to describe this podcast as the number one movie podcast on the internet. I know it's not that, but it's delusion will save us all.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I said, everyone should go check out Peyton across all platforms. He talks just wonderful things about movies, like in general, and also he was a frequent guest on the M. Night Shyamalan retrospective series that we are currently doing, which people can listen to the Lady in the Water episode that just, as we're recording this, it's out. Everyone should go listen to that. But yeah, we're talking about Mulholland Drive today. It is ranked number 200 on the Letterboxd Top 250. But before we get into that, there's Peyton. You like Letterboxd, right?
I love Letterboxd. I take it too seriously.
I take it completely seriously too. So seriously, in fact, that I had designed an entire show around it, to be honest. But you know the little recent activity at the bottom of your page?
Of course.
Yeah. So this is a really clever and very just bumpy transition into our segment, Last For Watched. So Peyton, without further ado, what are your last for watched?
Okay, so I guess I'll go from most recent to least recent of the last four watched. So the most recent film I saw last night was the movie Sideways, directed by Alexander Payne, starring Paul Giamatti, also in Lady in the Water. You should listen to the episode we just did on Lady in the Water. Little plug there. And Thomas Hayden Church as well, as an actor that I haven't seen enough of, so I was excited to check this movie out. I really like the other Alexander Payne films I've seen. I really loved this one. It pairs really well with some wine, because a lot of it centers around wine. It's a kind of a buddy road trip movie. If you like movies like A Real Pain, maybe, from last year, it's a much lighter film than that, but you might enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. And then I watched also last night Warfare in theaters, co-directed by Alex Garland and Ray Mendoza. Ray Mendoza being a actual veteran who was there, and the events of the film are pulled from the memories of the people that were there that are still alive today. So it's a bit of a kind of a horrific slice of life movie, I guess. It's like a retelling of this one mission, and it just kind of seeks to immerse the audience in some very nightmarish situations. And I think that is what it succeeds at doing. A lot of people are saying that it's got a bad message. I don't really think so. I think a lot of people that are saying that haven't seen the movie. I think it's just, war is bad. That's the... That's the takeaway. And then before that, I watched Highlander from the 1980s. This is a movie I didn't really like that much. It was just 80s cheese, which isn't always my thing. But I really liked the performances from Clancy Brown and Sean Connery. I thought the lead performance was kind of strange. I wasn't really getting much from that. But the supporting cast was really good, and it had some cool action scenes and some cool transitions and some cool cinematography. But otherwise, I just found the story to kind of be a little meandering and not very engaging for a lot of it, especially as we get into the later half of the movie. And then lastly, I saw, and this is a second watch, I watched this one twice back to back, Drop. The new film from Christopher Landon, the new thriller movie about first date gone wrong. I thought this was a great movie. I gave it 4.5 stars. It was like, it's this kind of Hitchcockian thriller that has a bit of romance to it, and it's as Hitchcock thrillers sometimes do. And then it also has this element of, kind of reflecting on survivors of abuse and how that lingers, how that trauma can linger with you, and how long after you escape the abusive situation. So it was an interesting film. I thought it was Christopher Landon's most sophisticated and most polished movie, especially in terms of his direction. It's the only one that he's directed that he didn't write on. And so he really brought it with the visual flair and the direction of the film. And I thought it just was such a nice movie to immerse myself in. And I love thrillers with absurd concepts that take themselves completely sincerely, that don't, that are confident enough to be silly, but not to make themselves ironic and wink at the audience and be like, hey, you have permission to laugh at us. There's not an insecurity to this movie like there is a lot of movies with silly premises. And I thought that was really refreshing. And it is honestly one of my favorite films so far this year. So that was a bit long-winded, but what are your last four?
No, that's great. I love all the movies that you mentioned there. Still, I had an opportunity to see Drop last night. I chose not to, just because I don't know. I just decided to save it for another day. And then Warfare, that's another movie like on my watch list for sure. I was not really the biggest fan of Civil War. I think I was pretty much in the minority on that film. I liked what Alex Garland is saying, like in Civil War, but I'm interested to see what he has to say along with this veteran about how war is bad. But yeah, my last four watched, I'm gonna go from most recent. I watched Sacramento last night instead of watching Drop. As being a Sacramento native and kind of growing up here and visiting like the city, like when I was younger, it was really nice kind of to feel represented, like in a really weird way, even though that representation is about two 30-something adults that are suffering from anxiety travel to Sacramento, in a city full of 30-something adults that are filled with anxiety, like myself. So I don't know what this movie is trying to say, whether it's trying to represent Sacramento in a good way, but also in an insulting way as well. But I think it's a really nice, charming kind of like road trip movie, kind of like what the film you mentioned, Sideways, how that film is very similar to A Real Pain. Sacramento is very much like A Real Pain. Like, it's about just how we handle grief and our pain like throughout our lives. So very, very interesting that we have two films. Go ahead.
It'd be a great triple feature.
Yeah, Sideways, Sacramento, and then A Real Pain. But I don't think Sacramento is the best script, to be honest. But I feel like it does what the film wants it to what the film wants it to do. But great film. I gave it 4.5 stars out of 5. My only issue with Sacramento is that, being from Sacramento and living here for about like almost 10 years at this point, when a film comes out that's centered in Sacramento and actually shows like the landmarks in like a very unique way, and people that aren't from here are like, oh, that's what Sacramento is like. The people within this city, they embrace the film almost to an oversaturation level, where it's just like it's, for example, Lady Bird. Lady Bird is a film that everyone loves, but the way that this film is the way Lady Bird just became like plastered throughout the city, I began to hate that film over time. So my hope is with Sacramento is that I won't start being oversaturated with this film. I just hope it just becomes like this buddy comedy about like two people kind of like overcoming their anxiety, and we just kind of like we just treat the film as a film. It's not like this film that holds up like a city like during tough times. But yeah, Sacramento's great. 4.5 stars out of 5. And then I watched Paddington 2. This is a rewatch. 5 stars. There's nothing else you can say about Paddington 2. It's straight cinema. Just Paddington is a nice warm hug, especially in this dark, gloomy 2020 year that we're living through right now. But what I love most about Paddington 2, I talk about this on the Cinema Pursuit podcast, which is coming out as when this episode comes out. It's Paddington 2. It's about kindness and using kindness in like the best ways and seeing good in people, and that's what Paddington does. But yeah, Paddington 2 is great. If you haven't watched it, stop what you're doing right now and watch Paddington 2. And then I watched another rewatch, Mrs. Doubtfire. this has become a frequent rewatch for me. Mrs. Doubtfire, just because Robin Williams. I think this might be Robin Williams' best performance. Yeah. Just I don't know. It's such a comfort rewatch. Yet again, like another film kind of like set in Northern California, San Francisco. I love films that are kind of set in my immediate area. But yeah, Mrs. Doubtfire is great. Robin Williams is great.
Never seen that one.
And you really?
Nope.
Yeah, I highly recommend you put it on your watch list because I think you would actually really enjoy it.
I think I would too. It's been there for a while. I just one of the many.
Yeah, and then last but not least, well, actually, depending on who you talk to, most definitely least, I watched a Minecraft movie, the film that's blowing up film Twitter, film Sky, film talk in the most absurd ways, and I thought it was okay. Like, I brought my niece to it. She really enjoyed it. I just thought it was just like, it made me feel so old. I will just say it just made me feel old because I remember playing Minecraft back in the pre-alpha days, like, and just discovering that game for what it is and seeing all the references. I was like, I understood some of them, but then some of the new stuff, I was just like, I didn't even know. Like, I was like totally shock and awed, like, throughout this entire film. I don't think, like I said, it's not a bad film. It's just not for me. And I feel like the people that are saying that it's not for them shouldn't be freaking taken to the cleaners just because like critics are getting trashed for not liking this film.
Yeah, I think people, they don't seem to understand that. Like, it's hard to I have a bit of a paradoxical take on that film because it's like, yeah, I enjoy watching it. I think it has so many problems, and I honestly think that if it weren't for me and my friend watching it and laughing together, like, if I'm really thinking critically about it, I don't think it's a good film. But it's like, you know, other people are like, oh, well, it's supposed to be bad. It's for, you know, it's for a younger audience. Like, oh, it's supposed to be bad because it's a meme or whatever, and they made it a meme. And I'm like, well, they're not honestly trying to make something bad on purpose. They're not playing 4D chess. They just, it's just a little bit lazy. The movie is just a little bit lazy. And it's corporate IP stuff, you know, and it's nothing new, but it's like, you don't have to defend the movie just because you enjoyed it. You can still be like, yeah, all this stuff falls short. But it seems like when you mention that the stuff that falls short, there's just this people that are just like, well, you're not allowed to criticize it because it's hilarious. And I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense. It's like, that's just my opinion. It's okay. Even if your opinion is that the movie is fantastic and it doesn't have any problems, like, that's also a fair opinion to have. It's just, you know, you don't have to, like, defend your opinion by saying, I acknowledge all this stuff is bad, but it's supposed to be, so I forgive it. It's like, you're allowed to say that you don't like that stuff in the movie. That's okay too.
Yeah. And like one of the things that, like, when people find someone that when people love the movie and they find people that hated the movie, they're always just like, well, don't watch the movie. And I'm like, as movie fan, you and I are both movie fans. We'll watch anything that has like a runtime on it. And like this thing I always say at the end of at end of every episode, it's like, keep watching movies. Like that's the thing that keeps us going. And like, I don't know, it's just frustrating. I think it's also like a sign of the times that we are in so many echo chambers too. So like when people are all loving a movie and then someone comes along and then pops like their bubble, they get like offended in a way, even though they shouldn't be offended. They should kind of be like, oh, what did you not like about it and stuff like that. And then I could say like you put perfectly in your review, Peyton, is that, and I totally agree with you. Like I love like the theme that a Minecraft movie is like teaching kids like to unleash their creative side. But then like the movie like halfway through, more than halfway through, is like, be creative, but don't play video games. Get out of your worlds and be creative like outside of the video game. But then this is also a Minecraft movie. Don't forget about Minecraft. Keep logging in and create stuff within the game, but take a step outside. It's very contradictory on what it's trying to be.
It's like selling you Minecraft, but then it's also saying stop playing Minecraft and go outside. But it's all like, it just doesn't feel very genuine the way that it delivers it. But anyway, that's It's a movie that I've talked about way more than I thought I would have to.
And the one thing I will say about a Minecraft movie before we transition into a much better movie, Mulholland Drive, I'm just really glad that Jared Hess he made a movie that's successful, and he probably all the money that he makes from a Minecraft movie, whether it's all of the money it's like at 300 million worldwide, 150 million domestically, right?
Yeah, something like that.
I just hope that he gets to make whatever he wants after this, or he just takes all that money and just like retires, just because.
Well, no, it'd be cool to see him make like an original comedy again, you
Yeah.
know, and make something that it doesn't feel weighed down by the IP, and that would be honestly something good to come out of this.
Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of like the goal of really any filmmaker. They kind of, it's like a whole mentality of like one for them, one for me.
Exactly.
Right? Like what Bong Joon-ho did with Parasite, and then he made Mickey 17. But yeah, but everyone loved Parasite, so it's like, so it's, yeah. But yeah, those are our last four watched. Let us know your last four watched in the comments down below using the hashtag last four watched. But Peyton, enough Minecraft talk. I know you've talked about Minecraft
Thank God.
way more than you thought. I've honestly, it's been in my feeds more than I expected. I thought this movie was going to bomb. But enough about that. Let's get into our featured review of Mulholland Drive.
I can't believe it. I'm just so excited to be here. I'm in this dream place.
This one comes highly recommended.
Dream place. What are you doing?
Get out of the car.
That was a clip from the trailer from the 2001 film Mulholland Drive, directed by David Lynch. Rest in peace, rest in power, David Lynch. This film is ranked number 200 on the Letterboxd Top 250, which, in my opinion, get those numbers up. Get those numbers up for this film.
Too low. Also, I love that trailer. You know, trailers from the early 2000s. I watched the trailer for Sideways last night before I saw the movie because my girlfriend wanted to watch the trailer before we watched it. Man, those trailers from that era of filmmaking, they always like fail to capture the actual tone of the movie. They all kind of feel the same in my experience. That one though, for Mulholland Drive, it actually I think helps the movie seem a little more typical than what you'd get when you watch it. So it like fails to capture the tone, but then it's like, can you really even capture the tone of this movie in a trailer? So it's kind of like mission failed successfully. Like it kind of makes the movie seem intriguing, even if you are just a typical, audience member, and you're not trying to watch something super trippy like this.
Yeah, and also it makes it accessible too. It sells like the audience, like, oh, I want to see that. That looks really interesting. A movie about like an actress trying to find herself, like in Hollywood. Like I'll see that. And then you actually watch it, and you're like, why do I have this existential dread and this pain in my heart, and why do I don't know, why is my left arm tingling? No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, the Mulholland Drive from 2001 stars Naomi Watts, Laura Herring, Justin Theroux, Ann Miller, Mark Pellegrino, Robert Foster, Dan Hedaya, Angelo Badalon. Hopefully I'm saying that right. Angelo Badalon. I'm just going to say Angelo. Sorry for butchering that last name. And then Patrick Fischler, and then Brent Briscoe. I'm just going to read the synopsis here from the internet. After a car wreck on Mulholland Drive renders a woman amnesiac, she and a Hollywood hopeful search for clues and answers across Los Angeles in a twisting venture beyond dreams and reality. Peyton, this is my first time watch, so I'll give my thoughts on this film a little later. But what are your thoughts or initial reactions after seeing Mulholland Drive?
So I believe I've seen this movie 4 or 5 times now. My first time watching it, I remember the date. It was January 9th, 2023. The reason I remember that is because I made a TikTok video, which is still pinned on my profile. It's one of my favorite videos I've ever created. Because it did decently well, but it really was just like so much fun. And it's like, man, this is what it's all about. I was going to watch Mulholland Drive. I had always wanted to see it. I had only seen Eraserhead from David Lynch, which was his first film. And that one's also a trip. But I was talking to a coworker of mine who is now actually my roommate. We're developing a project together. I'm going to plug that, Anyway, so he told me, because he had seen like all the David Lynch movies, and he was like, I don't think you should just go into Mulholland Drive. You need to watch at least like 2 more. And I said, okay, what do you recommend? And he said, well, definitely watch Blue Velvet, and watch maybe something like Lost Highway or I think Lost Highway was the one he suggested first, and I was like, okay, cool. So I had tickets to see Mulholland Drive in theaters at a 7 p.m. showing, and I spent the entire day up until that point watching Blue Velvet and Lost Highway, and then immediately going to see Mulholland Drive. And it's this great little movie marathon I did because I watched Blue Velvet on Max, and that movie's incredible. And then I was going to watch Lost Highway, but it wasn't available on anything. It was like completely non-available on digital media at all. But it had just come out on Criterion. And so in the video, I literally drive to Barnes & Noble and buy the Criterion like right there because I was determined to finish the video. And so, yeah, I bought the Criterion and watched the movie. That was great. And then, yeah, I went to see Mulholland Drive, and it blew me away. This is a movie I can remember my first experience with it so vividly because it's one of those rare experiences, and I've had this in a couple times in a movie where I literally am so lost in the movie that I'm not even aware that I exist anymore. That's how I can best describe it. Like, this movie did that. There was another time that this happened was when I watched actually Spike Lee's Black Klansman in theaters, because the intent of the final act of that movie had me so wrapped up in it that there was a moment of relief after, the whole climax had ended. And I literally looked around and was like, oh shit, like I'm Peyton, I have a life. I'm like a being right now. But it's like when I watched Mulholland Drive, there were moments where I had to recenter myself in reality because I was so wrapped up in that film. I know it sounds so corny, but this is literally how it feels. It's honestly like the high that you're chasing as a cinema lover is what I got from watching this movie. And that's why it's always going to be among my top favorite films, because I just had that moment where I like looked around the theater and felt the arms of the chair I was in, and I was like, oh, shit. That's not real. I'm actually sitting in a room right now. I was so wrapped up, like I was just a fly on the wall in the film. It was great.
No, I love that description because I feel like I had that exact same experience. I know for me, David Lynch has always been kind of like that. I don't want to say a scary filmmaker for me. Like, the only film that I've seen up to this point in his filmography is Eraserhead, and I wouldn't necessarily. I've always tell people that I never actually saw Eraserhead because we watched it in film school and we kind of picked it apart. And whenever you're watching stuff like in class during lecture, it's never, and you never feel like this is what the director intended you to do. You like, they want you to go to a movie theater, sit down, and just kind of surrender yourself to their film. And so up until this point, I've never really like. I never really felt the need to like watch more David Lynch, just because like that was kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a bad experience, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. But I've always been very intrigued in Mulholland Drive. Like, I love like LA based films and honestly LA based films that criticize kind of like the Hollywood culture and and old Hollywood, and that's what David Lynch is doing here. And I feel very fortunate that my first time watching Mulholland Drive, I actually went to my local theater and saw this on the big screen. Not really in the best projection that I was expecting it to be. Obviously, I think they were playing like a VLC, like MPEG file and projected like on a screen. But I think exactly what you described, Peyton. People need to see this like on the big screen, and no matter what format, just because you need to have like that communal experience with people around you, not throwing popcorn and recording the screen. Just because I will echo the sentiment that you had. Like, when this movie ended, we were scheduled to record this like the next day after I saw this, like in theaters. And I messaged you. I was just like, I need time to just think about this film because I understood a lot of like what was going on, but like when those credits rolled and that score started playing exactly what you said, like, oh, I just watched a movie. I'm not living in this world anymore. And when I was walking home, like, that score was still kind of like looming in my head, and like I just felt a part of David Lynch at this point. And it's just this film feels so special and powerful to me, just because, like, even though it's very dreadful that we lost him, David Lynch, but it feels like he's still here, to be honest. This Mulholland Drive is like I know filmmakers always say they leave a piece of them like in their films, each and every one of their films. Mulholland Drive is like the perfect example of that. And I didn't rate this film just yet, but I have to respect it. I have to respect like this film out of his entire filmography like so far. I'm really glad this is kind of like the first official film, because I'm very intrigued to watch more David Lynch after this. But yeah,
It's so incredible. I just think that it's like the movie's aware of its effects too. I mean, I feel like David Lynch, you could argue that he's kind of a random filmmaker, like he just throws weird stuff in there. I feel like there's some people that feel that way, but something about this movie feels so perfectly measured to give you that experience. And the fact that both of us had that experience so similarly, I think is very telling of that as well.
Yeah, for sure. I just completely was like amazed by this film and what David Lynch was able to do. But some fun facts about the film that I looked up. Obviously, David Lynch was nominated for Best Director for this film. Still kind of shocked that he never actually got an Academy Award for any of his films. He got an honorary award like in 2017, never actually an official award. I never really liked the honorary award just because it just feels like, oh, we forgot. And
I also believe that's what Akira Kurosawa got, so I feel kind of similarly to you on that. Yeah. Also, this lost Best Director to like Ron Howard, A Beautiful Mind, I think, which won Best Picture that year.
Yeah.
I think.
I believe so.
I think that's what it lost to. Such a bad choice. Honestly, like it should have been a no-brainer. But whatever. I mean, this perfectly directed movie, like this film has so many scenes that are not the same, and they all are directed so perfectly to capture exactly the tone that they need to capture. Anyway. I digress.
Well, I'm going to digress with you a little bit just because I think, honestly, I can see the Academy getting very pissed off about like this film just because it's calling out the things about the Hollywood dream and what old Hollywood like claims, like leave like your small town and come to Hollywood and all your dreams will come true. It'll all be great. And David Lynch says, like, basically in this film, like, yeah, it's not really as glamorous as those stories tell you.
There's something that feels very orchestrated about it, very sinister about it. We'll definitely, hopefully, be able to get into as well.
And it's very interesting too, because especially in the year we're living in now, that structure is collapsing. The Hollywood dream is kind of going away, and all these little other film industries are kind of popping up elsewhere. So I think David Lynch should be looking down on us and being kind of like he should be applauding at all the filmmakers kind of like started, because I think that's what he really wanted, like with this film. It's like, yeah, making movies is fun, and Hollywood can be great sometimes, but you don't necessarily have to be here to kind of like achieve your dreams the way that Hollywood wants you. You can like kind of like build like your own empire, and that's what David Lynch did his entire career. And it's very telling the way we're also doing the M. Night Shyamalan retrospective series. I think that M. Night Shyamalan and David Lynch kind of like live in those kind of like same worlds. Like David Lynch is kind of like 1 foot into the Hollywood system and kind of 1 foot out. Shyamalan's like completely out, kind of like doing his own thing. And I don't know, it's interesting to me for sure. So yeah. But yeah, shall we get into breaking down this film as best we can?
Yeah. No, I've got some stuff. I've got some stuff I can say about this movie.
Yeah. So this film starts off with a car driving down Mulholland Drive, which is a famous road in LA that is windy and long and ends right by the Hollywood sign, which I think a lot of people have had this interpretation where it's just like that's the actor's journey. That's the artist's journey, like when coming to Hollywood. It's long and winding. There's twists and turns along the way, but at the end of the road, you're here.
But then something stops them.
Yeah, something stops them, like the car crash, and is it Rita that was in the car crash after the?
Well, her name, she calls herself Rita. She doesn't. We
Camilla.
don't learn her name.
Rita and Camilla.
Yeah, we don't learn her name until much later because she doesn't even know it herself, and she calls herself Rita. But yeah, Laura Herring's character. I've always found the image of just that car driving through Mulholland Drive so scary, and then you have this woman in the back seat, and she's so stunning, and then immediately like the gun gets pulled on her, get out of the car, and then the car crash. It's like just this this crazy thing. It's like it feels like you're dropped into this situation, you don't understand what happened, and then before you can even learn anything, it gets completely sideswiped.
Yeah. So she kind of she flees the Laura Herring character. She flees like this car accident and follows the roads down to Sunset Boulevard. And go ahead, Peyton.
I'm going to say something we forgot to mention. So the car driving down the road is actually not the opening shot of this film, because the opening of this movie is technically a weird image of a bunch of people dancing, and they're all superimposed onto this background. And then Naomi Watts' character, who's known as Betty for most of the movie, is like smiling, like she's just won something and she's happy. And then you get this image of like the camera panning slowly to a pillow and then just hitting the pillow, and then that's I think when you get that car. And I think that's important for later, but I just wanted to mention that.
I'm glad you mentioned that, and it's also glad I also mentioned that we're going to break down this movie as best we can, so sometimes we miss things, so thank you, Peyton, for correcting me there.
The thing is, these scenes don't really have connective tissue, so we're gonna have to try to from memory be like, wait a minute, this happened too.
Yeah,
you know?
and the thing I do like about that scene, the Naomi Watts scene, is that like this is kind of like how the Hollywood dream like starts. It's like to kind of like put it in perspective of like the world that we're living in now. This is kind of like the virality moment that a lot of like content creators or just people that find themselves on social media find themselves in. They see their level of success. Like Naomi Watts' character, she wins like this dancing contest. I think it was like I forget what dance like they were doing, but Jitterbug, yeah, that's right, Jitterbug. And she's just like, oh, I can be a star too. So that's when, like you mentioned, like that's what David Lynch is trying to say, like when he switches to the shot of the pillow, that's what people have been interpreting. That's when the dream starts.
Yes.
And I'm still kind of like working out kind of like my theories on this movie. I think this entire movie is a dream, to be honest. I don't think there's no sense of reality or there's no sense of reality at all, because LA and Hollywood and the Hollywood system is such it's such a cloud in the skies and stuff like that. And everyone kind of has like their interpretation of like what the city and what this industry like means to them, and we're all kind of like dreaming in some sort of way. So I feel like that's what David Lynch is saying here, but I'm still kind of like working that theory out. But I definitely think it's very interesting for sure. But yeah.
I mean, I definitely feel like a good portion of the movie is a dream. I think it's all abstract, but I think in the movie's context there is a bit of a reality towards the end. I'll kind of get into this a little bit, because there is I know you shouldn't do this with David Lynch movies, but I've heard a theory about this movie online that is like so airtight that I'm like, I feel like this is what he's getting at, but it's like, I don't want to limit the movie to that, because I feel like the movie, that's a disservice, because the movie is so dynamic and there's so much going on. But there is, I think, a really cool interpretation that this film is about it's about how women are taken advantage of in Hollywood, and how women are given the corruption of Hollywood gives women opportunities to, I guess, advance their careers through transactional quid pro quo means, like the casting couch thing. And that is something I've heard about this movie that I think makes a lot of sense in terms of picking it apart. I think that's part of it, but it's also about how directors are used as pawns in this as well. There is definitely a old Hollywood-ness to the movie, like capturing how old Hollywood sees, I guess, people who are trying to become stars and enter into the modern Hollywood age. Anyway, we can keep breaking down this, I guess, on a scene-by-scene basis. So when Rita, quote unquote, gets to the apartment, she essentially hides in this apartment, and then we get the first real scene with Naomi Watts, which is her arriving at the airport. I believe this is the next part of the movie. She's arriving at the airport in LA with these two old people who she, I guess, won the contest from. And this scene is incredible because it has this kind of goofy B-movie tone to it, and there's literally out of sync ADR and cheesy music, and everything's all sunny and pretty, and she gets in a cab, and then when the old people leave her, there's the scene of them in the car, like looking at each other like they've just initiated some kind of sinister scheme, and it gets all dark and creepy for a second. And I think that it's
The
a
way they're
sign of things.
smiling.
Yeah, people are so scary. And yet the old people in The Straight Story, which is another David Lynch movie, are the sweetest, most beautiful people imaginable. So David Lynch, very versatile in that way. And then I think we get the diner scene after that.
Yeah, we get the diner scene, but I would like to comment like about Naomi Watts' character arrival to LAX and kind of like just how that film scene is shot. Like one, I like how everything's kind of like brightly lit and just very kind of like overpowering, but also very kind of like warm and inviting too. And that's an interesting kind of like thing that you mentioned too. I didn't get that that she won like the contest like from those old people or whatever.
I think they're dropping her off because she won the I think they ran the contest. That's what at least that's what I assume, since they kind of come into play later. But I can't remember if they're actually in that opening shot or not.
I don't remember
don't think they are.
I don't think they are, because I thought that scene was hilarious because like this is kind of like what a young kind of like naive actor or quote unquote actor would do when they're going to like LA. Like they would meet like this old couple at the airport and tell them of like, oh, I'm going to LA, I want to be an actor, and then they kind of like make this friendship and bond. I think that's really great, just because all the actors that I've ever met, that's all they talk about, and then they kind of like form relationships like through those stories that they tell. And that's what old people also do, is say like when they say goodbye, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to see you on the big screen. Something that I have honestly heard multiple times, because when people see my name, my full name, well, when they see my full name, they're like, oh, that's a movie, that's a name that I can see on the big screen, and I can't wait to see your name. And I'm like, I don't know, I felt like very seen during that scene for sure. And also it's just very terrifying, and yeah, like those smiles were terrifying for sure.
And yeah, that's interesting, because I always assumed that they had something to do with the contest, because they seemed like they were like kind of luring her to Hollywood. But maybe I'm wrong. That actually is a cool take as well.
No,
yeah,
well,
I didn't think about that.
That's the beauty of David Lynch and just this film in general. And I'll probably put in like in the edit, if you haven't seen this film, don't listen to our discussion. Go watch this film and then listen to the discussion, because I think going in blind to this film is probably the best. You'll have like the most best experience like ever, just because if you started watching like explainer videos or discussion videos, then you kind of have like this preconceived notion of what this movie is. And that's what I feel like makes this movie so timeless too, is that if you go in blind, you kind of like, based on all of the experiences that we've had throughout life, we'll take something different from each movie. And that's what I love, like hearing like David Lynch talk in interviews like about this film. Like he's so cryptic, he doesn't want to like give too much away, because he wants everyone to have like a different experience when watching one of his films, especially this film. But yeah, sorry for that like whole long-winded thing, but then we get to the diner scene, which we get introduced to the Patrick Fischler character, which I was like, this guy looks familiar. And I looked at his IMDb page and I'm like, oh, this is the dude from Speed. He's also in American Fiction from a few years ago, and also in Twister as well. I was like, I love, that's another thing I love about David Lynch, is that he always picks like these really strong kind of like character actors and kind of puts them in roles that you wouldn't necessarily see them in.
Definitely.
Yeah, but we were introduced to him at the Winkies Diner, which is not an actual diner like in LA, but a pretty popular, according to David Lynch, it's a popular Denny's diner where a lot of like writers and producers used to like kind of meet and talk about ideas. So to see this character kind of like talk about like the Hollywood dream, and I don't know, it's what do you think about this scene for sure?
So I think this scene, there's a line that always sticks out to me, which is, there's a man in back of this place. He's the one who's doing it, and he said, I want to come to this Winkies, the Winkies that's on Sunset Boulevard. It's an important street in Hollywood. So it's like, there's kind of idea that this is a microcosm of Hollywood. This one diner is like a microcosm of Hollywood. It's something so pleasant on the outside, but in the back there's just this decrepit, sinister figure that's kind of pulling the strings. He's the one who's doing it. Specifically men, right? I think this movie has a lot to do with corrupt men in Hollywood and how women are used and manipulated in Hollywood. And their dreams are kind of used against them. And then they go in the back of the diner, and this is like one of the great jump scares of all time. This got me so good in the theater when I first saw it, because it's so atypical and arrhythmic to what you would expect a jump scare to look and sound like. Also, fun fact about this from behind the scenes, the person behind the diner, that like gross looking, so that character is played by a woman, I forget her name, but she plays the nun in the Conjuring movies. And she said that she was, when getting directed for what face she should make when she pops out of the diner, she thought David Lynch was attractive. And when he was giving instructions, she was kind of looking at him in a seductive kind of way, like the way she was looking at him. And he said, that's what you should do. And so she's using the face she was making when she was attracted to David Lynch as the face that she makes when she jumps out from behind the diner. It's so weird and creepy. David Lynch is such a genius because he'll just use stuff like that in movies to make things seem off key.
That's hilarious. I actually I remember that story like pretty vividly. I think it's like a few years ago I heard about that story, but yeah, I think that's great. And that scene, like, my soul left my body, and I felt like Dan in that specific situation, played by Patrick. Like the way he faints, it's just like, oh my god, it's an incredible jump scare.
He just dies in that scene. Like, it's crazy how he just falls apart. Also, this movie was supposed to be a TV show at one point, and that's why a lot of this kind of feels very episodic, very disconnected at first. But I think it comes together in a really fun way. I think the next scene that we get is the scene with the hitman.
Yes, another funny scene.
Very funny.
Like, this is the next scene we get is Naomi Watts arriving at her after she takes like the taxi from LAX. She says the address to
the hotel, but it's on Havenhurst.
Yeah, 1612 Havenhurst, which supposedly doesn't exist, but
I think the street ends, but it intersects with Sunset Boulevard.
Yeah, and to the left, there's the hotel that was used in Sunset Boulevard, one of David Lynch's like favorite films, and which is supposedly, I don't know if this is actually true, but this like that hotel is where a lot of like actors kind of first start. And they first start living there. It's like this very historic hotel in Los Angeles. So I don't know if David, the way he kind of like centers this movie like around that, it's very interesting, just because, like I said, that's one of his favorite films, and it's basically him kind of like saying the quiet thing out loud like there. But she takes a taxi to the room where we later find out that we earlier find out where Laura Herring's character is hiding, which is something that's when she finds. That's where she finds Laura Herring's character, and they have that interaction where Laura Herring basically says, "I don't know who I am." And I like this scene specifically just because it's these two worlds colliding. You have the naivety of Diane's character, kind of like wanting to kind of break into this industry, and then you have Laura Herring's character that's already been in this industry, and she's played so many different characters at this point. And she doesn't like the line. She doesn't know who she is anymore. Is that she's so deep into this industry that it's the truth. She doesn't know who she is anymore. So she uses the newcomer to kind of like remind her who she is again. So she uses kind of like the fake. She uses Rita's name, which is a old actress that she kind of looks up to as kind of like her persona. I also like about this scene too is that I always believed that Laura Herring's like character here, like that's actually her house, and it goes back to like what you're saying, how women are used in this industry. Like when the newcomer comes in, they sweep like the older person out, which watching this movie, especially for the first time, and one of my favorite movies of last year, The Substance, I can definitely see the parallels there and what Coralie Farge was like trying to do, and just pay homage to a film like Mulholland Drive. I love kind of like those connections for sure. But what do you think about like those two scenes that we're talking about? So
yeah, so well, when they meet, yeah, she uses the name Rita Hayworth, I believe, is the name of the actor. And there's also a character here that runs the apartment building named Coco, and she's played by an older Hollywood actress. I forget her name, but was in a lot of films in her younger years, and David Lynch got her to be in this movie. And I think that that's also very telling thematically of what's going on. It's like she's kind of like this kind of supervising figure over the younger women that are coming into this industry at this point in the movie. And yeah, I love the scene where she says, "I don't know who I am," because it's kind of an inciting incident for this movie. If you're trying to jam this movie into traditional structure, which I don't think you should, it is essentially the inciting incident of the movie. It's where the mystery kind of kicks off in it. What I love about this movie is that it allows you to become so engaged and wrapped up with it like you would any other film with like just an interesting story. But it's got all these weird quirks to it that, make you understand at the same time that there's something deeper going on here below the surface at all times. And so, yeah, I love that part. There's also like money that they find in her purse, I believe. And that's another thing. It's like, that's almost something I don't even remember if that's even brought into play later entirely. There is something that's not really literally the same thing as that money that could be kind of referring to it in an abstract sense that we'll get into later, but I actually think that's
isn't the money
just
sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Well, to kind of add on what you were saying about like the money that gets brought into picture, isn't that money that's the money that the Diane character won from the dancing contest? Because she mentioned it like I'm just thinking of this now. She mentioned that she won like after that opening sequence. There's a scene that we kind of skipped over that she won like some money from like that dancing contest, and she's going to use that money to go to LA and kind of
but that's well, yes, but the money that they find is not. It's from Laura Herring's character, right?
Oh
like,
yeah,
they don't know where the money came from. Right. And that's kind of just a classic thing, I think, is like you have a large sum of money and the characters don't know what to do with it. So there's all these things that David Lynch throws in that are like very like typical. You get this kind of Nancy Drew-esque like mystery solving plot line, this kind of main thread. And then I think around this time is where we meet both the hitman and then also Justin Theroux's character, their opening scenes respectively. And I love this hitman scene. It starts with actually the hitman and someone else laughing, and they mention an accident, which I'm assuming they're talking about the accident on Mulholland Drive that happens in the car accident. The movie. Yeah. And then there's a book that that the hitman needs, and it's like a little black book, which is often something that men have to record women's phone numbers or women that they know for like hookups and stuff. And I think there's a parallel between this hitman character and like in later scenes in the movie, he's not a hitman, he's a pimp, right? And so I think there's a parallel between this hitman character and figures in Hollywood that treat women this way, treat women as just, objects to throw out or to use as they please. And I think that's a very interesting kind of juxtaposition for this character to have. And then, just this scene is hilarious overall. He kills this guy for the book, and then he makes a bunch of noise. He shoots someone in the other room, and she goes, "Something bit me." And then he has to kind of wrangle her and keep her quiet, but he's failing so horribly at it. And then there's a janitor with a vacuum, and then the vacuum cleaner like lights on fire, and it's just this whole thing, and he has to just like run away, basically.
It's an amazing scene, and I feel like watching the scene, especially for the first time, I immediately, like you mentioned, like this film was originally supposed to be a miniseries or a television show, and this scene specifically screams like it would be part of it. It's like a filler episode for sure, because I think you would find out more about like this hitman of like and what his story would be. But I love the way David Lynch blends humor, especially in this scene, just because in any other movie, especially a movie like coming out today, if this scene were to like pop up, people would be like, oh, the tone is all over the place. But David Lynch like crafts the scene so well with like the other part of the movie is that you don't necessarily feel jolted by the switch in tone. It feels completely natural, just because. So I've heard theories about this. This is Diane's kind of like, because she hires Diane or Betty. She hires like the hitman to take out like one of these characters.
So
So
it's interesting too, because that, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was gonna say it's interesting too, because that scene when she hires him is basically like her. I think she says this is the girl, and she puts the headshot on the table,
Yeah.
and it's like she's making this deal with the devil almost too. And he, in this version of the film, by the end, he's not a hitman, he's a pimp, or at least that's something he does. And so you could interpret it as her basically saying, this is the girl I'm envious of, this is the girl I want to be. You know, and she's making this deal to basically sell away her agency to get what she wants, the dream she wants, to be like Laura Herring's character. That's something you could interpret this as well. But I think on first watch, it is probably supposed to be what you're saying, where you're like, oh, she's putting out a hit on her friend who she, you know. But there's just so many interesting ways to look at it.
Yeah. And I love this scene too, because like you mentioned, like he takes out like this one guy, and I think he only shoots once there, because like the bullet travels through the guy and travels through the wall and hits the lady like in the ass. Such a like funny.
Yeah, I can't really remember how it goes down exactly, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and it's just like it kind of reminded me of like Forrest Gump a little bit too, like something bit me. It's
so good.
Just the way just everything kind of unravels, like the way that scene ends, where the fire alarm goes off, and he's just like, oh, he's just like, it's like I gotta get out of here.
He's just like, oh man, like, he says it so many times.
Yeah, it's just like the worst hitman possibly that ever created. But super funny scene, but actually like fits it fits within the tone of the movie for sure.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned we get introduced to the character of Adam, the director of this movie. I don't think it's a David Lynch surrogate. It's just David Lynch kind of commenting like what you said on what director's kind of role is like in the Hollywood system. Like it's him saying that like once you kind of make it, you don't necessarily have like a say on what your movie will actually turn out like, because
I agree with you.
There's constantly like these people in the back kind of like just pulling your strings, to put it lightly, in a way, if you know what I mean.
I agree with you. I also think that this character is not a David Lynch insert, but maybe it's something David Lynch has experienced in his life. Studio, like there's just this line that sticks out in this scene where he says, that girl is not in my film, and they say it's no longer your film. Also, very important, the girl that they want to cast in this movie, they don't explain why, but they're like, it has to be this girl. You can cast anybody else, but the lead is this girl. This is the girl. That's a repeating line in the movie. And it's this blonde that's named Camilla Rhodes. The name that Laura Herring's character is actually revealed to have in the latter half of the film. And so the film that they're auditioning for is called The Sylvia North Story, which is where Naomi Watts' character mentions towards the end of the movie that she met Laura Herring's character on, is the movie that they both worked on. So there's an interesting, kind of shows how maybe, you know, this is kind of like Naomi Watts' character's dream is kind of her processing this betrayal that happened to her, where she wanted to be the lead in this film, but there was some kind of predetermined outcome that she couldn't control, or maybe that's just how her subconscious helps her heal from this betrayal, is thinking the odds were rigged against me, the system is rigged, so I shouldn't feel bad, it's not my lack of talent, it's just Hollywood's corruption. That Camila Rhodes got the part instead. And then you have that scene, which I'm kind of getting ahead of ourselves here, but you have the scene where Adam Kesher clearly looks at Naomi Watts and they lock eyes. And it's like he's thinking to himself, that girl is perfect for the film, but he knows that he has to cast Camila Rhodes, this other girl, instead, because he's kind of held at gunpoint to do that. So very interesting, how it could be, it's definitely a commentary on the corruption of Hollywood, but it could be a character trying to, dreaming about a reality in which everything was rigged against her anyway, and that's why she lost. Or maybe it's just about how the system itself won't always reward the most talented people, because there's always some kind of sinister thing happening where people strike deals in back rooms and stuff to get certain people ahead, even if they aren't the most talented.
Yeah, or even like objectify like these women to kind of, and just I don't know. I'm trying to find a way to like talk about like this one scene, especially like the audition scene, because I think this is the most troubling and the most disturbing thing throughout, like in this entire movie, and it was very hard to watch for me. Is when it's not Diane, it's Betty at this point. Like she goes into audition and like basically gets filled up, like and
she has to kind of like play into it even for the sake of the performance. So it's like your genuine desire to make art and to make good art is being exploited by men who just want to objectify women. And I think that's another core theme of the movie that's really represented in this scene. There's also something about the dialogue that they're reciting for this movie that they're rehearsing for is like very much blackmailish and quid pro quo-ish in a way. It's like my I'm gonna tell on you. Oh, but then what about you? Like, how are you gonna look if you tell on me? It's like you're stuck in this situation. And then she says, "I hate you. I hate us both." It's this sort of like, I feel guilty for allowing myself to be put in these situations, but really I'm a victim of these situations. And the people in power and the corrupt are basically, they thrive off convincing the people that they're manipulating that like it's their fault, or that they have some kind of shame in it too, so they can't say anything about it. Something like that. It gives me the feeling.
Yeah, it's definitely a very like ugly feeling, especially for a first time watch, but I think it's also just like it's very telling for especially like what's happening today and how far like the industry has come and how some of these things actually still happen. I'm not going to mention this person's name because I don't want like the stream to get flagged or anything like that.
I think we all know who you're talking about.
I think we all know who I'm talking about too. But
also, the way that this scene is so different from the scene of her and Laura Herring rehearsing it in the apartment. When they rehearse it, the dialogue is corny, the acting is whatever. But then once they get to the actual audition, it's like, whoa, this is actually, even though it's uncomfortable, like this acting is amazing.
And it just kind of shows just like I've never been in an audition room. Like no matter how many times you practice for an audition or hope that you get a role, like when those doors close, it's like it's kind of like everything changes at that point. I don't think that's exactly what David Lynch was trying to say there, but it's just interesting for sure. Just like the change in tones there. But you also mentioned about like the whole like when Adam sees Camilla and says this is that girl. I think it's also another good thing to mention too is that the girls that they see that should be in the movie or both have blonde hair. So that's kind of like another archetype that Hollywood always likes to go back to. It's like white blonde women, put them at the forefront, which is, we still kind of have that today, but it's for sure going away with like the rise of representation and representing different cultures for sure.
Also, this is my favorite scene in the film. The audition scene, not the one with Naomi Watts and that guy, but the one with Justin Theroux and this is the girl. Like this is my favorite scene in the film because I love just the song choice, the I've Told Every Little Star. part. So nice.
Mhm.
It fits the tone of the movie perfectly because it has this old Hollywood vibe. But the scene itself is kind of sinister. The part where his assistant tells him, "Oh, who's next?" and he says, "Oh, Camilla Rhodes," and Justin Theroux's lighting a cigarette, and he fumbles it in this way once he hears that name because he knows that
Mhm.
this is the girl he's been dreading seeing all day. And Justin Theroux's acting is just pitch perfect in this scene. You know, when they're like, "You wanted to tell me something, Adam," and he looks at him, and he looks at him with this kind of "fuck you" glare.
Mhm.
And he says, "This is the girl. That's what you want me to say, right?" Like, just perfectly done. And also there's just a magical movie moment in here that I can't help but succumb to every time I watch it, which is when they lock eyes. It's this
Mhm.
like it's this tragic moment. It's like these two people, like what you'd expect to happen in the dream Hollywood film, in the structure of the film that you've been watching, of this girl trying to discover herself or get discovered in Hollywood. It's like these two eyes locking, and it's like this, oh my god, you're exactly who I need. But it's like, oh, but the corruption of the system doesn't allow those Hollywood stories that you see in the movies to actually come into fruition. In fact, it's just gonna pass them by, and they're not ever gonna see each other again because that's what happens, you know?
Yeah, it's scenes like that for sure. I don't know if it's one of my favorite scenes in the movie, but it's definitely up there. But it reminds me of like something that would come out of Babylon for like a more
Definitely, yeah.
like a recent movie. And watching this movie just like throughout, I'm really kind of discovering why kind of like David Lynch really became kind of like an adjective, or like describing movies. Like when people are describing movies, it's like Lynchian. Like
Yeah.
this movie is very Lynchian. Mulholland Drive is that example of like why people kind of like compare, and like when filmmakers are making their movies about LA, they're like, oh, we got to mention Mulholland Drive in some way. It's like whether it's using like a certain shot or paying reference to a scene, they use Mulholland Drive, and that's kind of like births the Lynchian kind of like word that we made up because of this movie. I think it's great. So
Definitely.
yeah, but I know we're missing a lot.
So one scene that I think we skipped, because it definitely happens before the audition, is the cowboy scene. So they say they want,
yes.
Well, two things. Okay, with Adam Kesher's character, he is getting cheated on by his wife with Billy Ray Cyrus, which is such a funny scene, and he puts paint on her jewelry as revenge.
Oh yeah,
It's just hilarious.
Hilarious. Just I like how Adam's character just walks into the room, and she's like, "What are you doing?" As
she
she's laying
she
in
says,
bed.
"Well, now you've done it."
Yeah, and he just grabs like the jewelry and just like covers it in pink paint, and just
she says something to Billy Ray Cyrus. He's like, he's doing this, and then Billy Ray Cyrus is like, he's probably upset, Lorraine.
The most Billy Ray Cyrus for something. Billy Ray Cyrus thing for
just
for
a hilarious casting choice for that.
Yeah.
So there's that scene, which is very funny, but then there's also the scene with the cowboy, which is really important, I think, because the cowboy is kind of this old Hollywood figure. In fact, the actor is wearing clothes that were brought to the set that were worn by an old Western actor.
It's the first cowboy in film history, supposedly. I forget the name,
but it's like actual clothes worn by that guy were we used for this movie. And the cowboy says something like, this is also one of my favorite scenes because it's so funny when he's like, "Now are you saying that you understood, that you agree with what I said because you actually agree, or because you just want me to move on or something? Like, do you actually hear what I say?" And then he says, "I agree with what you're saying." And he goes, "What did I say?" It's like this great conversation where the cowboy kind of puts his foot down with Adam Kesher pretty hard and says, you're gonna pick this girl. You'll see me one more time if you do bad, and I think two more times if you do good, or vice versa. And that, I think, implies like, I'm gonna kill you if you don't do this right,
or I'll not necessarily kill you, I'm going to like ruin your career. You'll never work in this. I think that's what he's basically saying there.
In the context of this film, that is kind of a death.
Yeah, true. Very, very much kind of a death. But I love that it's a cowboy figure, because like we mentioned, the first cowboy like ever, like that's kind of like what they wore. But from my limited knowledge of like old Hollywood and the Hollywood system, and seeing people kind of like praise movies like from the outside, people love westerns, and they like to put like the people who play cowboys like up on pedestals. So to have like this kind of like cowboy character that sees where the industry is going and like wants certain people to be cast like in movies to kind of like think that he's doing what's best for the industry, I think it's very telling, because you have like actors like John Wayne playing very famous can you not hear me? Did I mute? I think you're muted. But like what I was saying, it's like old Hollywood figures are always kind of like played by like cowboys, and they're kind of like glorified throughout like the industry and the people that watch movies. So to have like this cowboy figure, also a man, thinking like what's best for like the industry, it totally makes sense for like what David Lynch is trying to say. Just because you have actors like John Wayne, Clint Eastwood that played pretty prominent figures in like westerns, I think like David Lynch is calling out like those people and just saying like this is what Hollywood is built on. But
yeah, absolutely.
Go
I think
ahead.
Next, after the audition, we have the scene where Betty and Rita, quote unquote, go to the apartments where they believe she's supposed to have lived, and they're getting like chased too, like it's getting like scouted by these officials, and then there's a woman who they encounter who's supposed to be in Diane. They think she's Diane, right? Because they see the name tag on the waitress in the diner named Diane. They say, does Diane Selwyn live here? And she goes, oh no, I switched apartments with her. And so they go to this other apartment, and this is the scariest thing in the movie to me.
This is when they see the dead body, right? Is it? Yeah,
they see this corpse, and Laura Herring's reaction of just like her screaming, and then Naomi Watts covering her mouth. And there's a moment where David Lynch does this effect when they're running out of the apartment, and they're getting it's like this trail effect where their shadows kind of follow them, or like the images of their bodies is like delayed a bit. And for a split second when I first saw the movie in theaters, I thought they were being chased out of the apartment, like because I saw their shadows as like someone else, and I was like like it made me jump, and then I realized what he was doing. It was just a camera effect, but it was very very scary.
Yeah, it's scary also just because Naomi Watts' character, like you mentioned, is the one that's not necessarily scared, because you see kind of like that's her naivete just kind of like coming into effect. Like she doesn't know what to expect. The Laura Herring character, she's seen a lot of shit before, and she's still kind of terrified because this is like what if this is her? Like what if this is it's I don't know.
Like what if someone's trying to kill me too?
Yeah. And like this is what I love most about kind of like the duality of these two characters, of like one that's just kind of like it's like I said, like one's very naive, and one that's kind of like hardened. I don't want to use the term like hardened, or just like more experienced in like in this industry. The way that the different reactions that they would have, I think is very interesting for sure. But a very scary scene for sure. Just seeing like a dead body and not able to see their face, and just and the possibility is like, what if this could be me? It's very scary for sure. But what were you gonna say? Or
no, nothing. I think you summed it up pretty well. That it's just it's a very terrifying scene. And they go back to the apartment, and I believe that this is where we kind of get into their romantic relationship. And Laura Herring, at this point in the movie, disguises herself with a blonde wig.
Yeah.
And that's such a strange choice to me. I never quite understood that part.
Well, it goes back to like what I was saying, how like the Hollywood industry, like, or people in Hollywood, especially old Hollywood, are kind of like are attracted to blonde women. And Laura Herring's character, who is a brunette, originally a brunette, she's kind of putting on this like facade or this mask to kind of like to fit in, try and fit in. And I like the way like this wig is, like when she puts it on, it doesn't necessarily fit on her head completely. It's like she doesn't necessarily fit into like this industry or this world, but she's trying so hard to kind of like to hold on to what little she has left. I think it goes back to the substance. Everything, like when watching this movie, pretty much everything went back to the substance. Like like an old like a not necessarily old but experienced like kind of like actor holding on to what she had, and this new woman kind of like coming in and not
Yeah.
necessarily taking like what she had maliciously, but she wants what they have. And I think what's interesting about like their relationship and that started to form is like that happens all the time. You have young naive actors coming in and kind of like falling in love with like the people that are already there because they want what they already have. And seeing like with the perspective of social media, we see that constantly. And that's where
Oh,
the whole
absolutely.
imposter syndrome that's where the whole imposter syndrome like comes in. And I experience this on a regular basis, but
Me too.
I think it's yeah.
And I think you're right that there are definitely similarities to this and the substance, and you could see them as companion pieces. But
Mhm.
I think the substance is more about the self and your relationship with yourself in this kind of industry, whereas Mulholland Drive is more about the corruption of the system. And I
Mhm.
know that the substance is about the corruption of the system and the beauty standards and everything of that sort, which kind of ties them together. But the substance is, I think, also about how we engage with like how we kind of don't respect the balance of our own bodies and
Mhm.
our own lives. We don't think about the things we'll have to deal with the repercussions of when we're older for how we behave in the present.
Mhm.
But we're not talking about the substance. But
No.
I think Mulholland Drive it definitely just goes harder in terms of really showcasing the systemic issues in Hollywood. And I think the substance has this balance between the system and the self.
Yeah, for sure. One other thing before we kind of continue, we did forget to mention it's like a very small scene, but it's a scene that I uh, actually really love. It's a very weird scene, but it's the scene like with that black background and kind of like that red kind of highlighting around. It's like from what the reading that I did do like after seeing this movie is like that's kind of like it's David Lynch commenting on like what like those boardroom kind of like talks are like where you have like these old figureheads. It's like
Oh,
you
you're
know it's in a
talking about the scene where there's the pane of glass and he's talking to the guy that's in the chair?
yes.
Yeah, that is such a weird scene.
It's very weird. I like it's very satanic in a way where
Yeah.
it's David Lynch basically saying it's like it goes back to like what I was saying how like when you're a director in this industry things are being controlled, and this is David Lynch kind of like illustrating like this is what I think like what's happening in those boardrooms, like what's actually going on. I don't know, very weird. And I just feel like it was good to mention for sure. So.
Definitely. I think that that you kind of summed up that scene pretty well. And I think that this next scene is also one of my favorite parts of the movie because I feel like it almost describes how I feel watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when Laura Herring's character wakes up in the middle of the night and she can't stop saying "Silencio, no hay banda," and then she said,
Yeah.
she says, "Let's go somewhere," and they go to this club, the Club Silencio, which I actually have a I can't show it to you because there's all that light, but I actually have a poster of Club Silencio. It's a little headshot of the singer Rebecca Del Rio that comes in and sings that song Llorando. She sings the crying song. She's super talented. I met her in person. She signed it for me at a screening of Mulholland Drive, and she is so cool. I got to listen to her sing that, and it was like I was in the movie.
And that's great. And the fun fact about Rebecca
Del
Rio is that David Lynch basically just cast her. He didn't want to hear anything.
She does music for Twin Peaks as well.
Yeah, but he basically just said, "I just want you to sing in this scene," and that was the first time he ever heard her sing. And he was like, "No, yeah, I'm going. We're using this right now," and I think that's incredible. That's the first time anyone ever heard her sing. It's a beautiful scene too, and just the way it ends too, how she just collapses. It's kind. I don't want to end up repeating myself, but it's very telling how like this industry works. It's like how these people want us to perform until we basically just collapse,
yeah.
Drop dead.
And then the performance is recorded and it goes on anyway.
Yeah.
Even if we're not, they don't need it. Once they don't need your physical body, they have enough to just play it on a tape. And that's definitely a very big part of the scene. But I also think it's perfect for this kind of movie because that's kind of how I felt watching it. I felt like I was in the audience just kind of getting so wrapped up into this movie, even though the movie, you know it's a movie, you know it's not real, you know it's a recording, you know there is no band, right? But for some reason it feels like there is a band. It feels like everything is real. And then, you know, this scene is kind of like a reality check for that. And it always makes me a little emotional when I watch it.
Yeah, very emotional just because of just all the stories, especially now, like all the stories that come out just about like all these actors just working so hard and then stuff getting taken away from them just like that. But kind of like, I guess to move on to like another scene that kind of like parallels like the scene that we talked about at the diner when we find Diane or Betty sitting at the diner and she meets Dan, the Patrick Kishore character. And I think it's a very interesting scene, like when they both meet, because that's another imposter syndrome thing again, where he sees her kind of living her dream and gets jealous in a way.
Are you talking about the scene where they lock eyes across the diner?
Yeah, when they lock eyes.
I think that scene is more like him kind of feeling sorry for her and realizing that she has seen the corruption as well that's behind Hollywood, and she's kind of succumbing to it as well. And he sees her making that deal with the devil essentially and being like, oh, I know, I've seen this before. You know, this happened to my dream too. And I think that's what they're seeing each other. Because this section of the movie is, I guess, as close as what you could call the movie's reality. You have all these scenes of like Naomi Watts just going through it and being incredibly isolated and depressed, and clearly has gone through a lot in pursuit of her dreams in Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree with you. It's both of the characters kind of coming to their truth and finding out what this industry actually wants instead of wanting their fame. They, like, the industry wants the fame for themselves. Is there anything else that we're missing?
I think we should talk about, because after the Club Silencio scene, that's when they go back to the apartment, they unlock the box, and then Betty disappears. And that's kind of when we get into this reality scenario. And I think there's so much to this section of the movie, because so Betty is Diane Selwyn, and Betty is just the name of it's kind of in reverse. It's the name of the Winkies waitress towards the end of the movie when she's talking to the hitman. And then Camilla Rhodes is actually the name of Laura Herring's character. And I think it could be interpreted that Camilla Rhodes was an actress who met Betty while they were both pursuing a dream. She was willing to do the things that the corrupt Hollywood system wanted her to do to get famous. Diane was uncomfortable with these things, and so they become kind of like, they go on separate paths essentially. And I think that's why there's this yearning for her. There's this like jealousy she feels when we find out that actually Laura Herring's character is getting married to Adam Kesher, the director. And his mom is actually Coco, the one who is running the apartment complex. And she used to maybe have a relationship with Laura Herring's character, but Laura Herring gave up on that and gave up on her true self in order to be closer to the men in Hollywood and be more palatable to them, essentially putting on that blonde wig, that disguise, in a way. And I think that is basically the truth of the movie. And then you have this mirrored scene from the beginning of the car on Mulholland Drive, and they stop, and she goes, "We don't stop here." And then Camilla Rhodes, Laura Herring, comes out of the bushes and says, "I have a shortcut to the top of the hill." And it's basically like, she's showing her, she's like, this is a shortcut to get to the top of the Hollywood hill where you want to be. This is how you can achieve your dream. You just have to be like me and do what you're supposed to do. Right. You know? And I think that's also why there's the scene where the blonde that plays Camilla Rhodes in the dream portion of the movie kisses Laura Herring's character at that party. And then you see the cowboy like walking by in the background. It's like the cowboy is like almost the host, it feels like. He's like the old Hollywood overseeing everything, almost like the kind of realistic version of Coco's character in the dream running the apartment complex. I don't know. That's kind of how I interpret this section of the movie.
Well, you mentioned the blue box and the blue key, which I think that's the one thing that I really pulled out of like this entire movie and this entire scene is what I interpreted as the blue box and the blue key. Maybe you can help me out with this because you actually seen Twin Peaks. From what I've read before actually before we started recording, is that supposedly blue in most of all of David Lynch's movies, and especially like Twin Peaks, blue is the color that symbolizes secrets. And after reading that, for sure, having like a blue box and a blue key, David Lynch is handing us like the key to the secrets of Hollywood, and he's handing that key to the audience, and it's up to us whether if we want to open it or not, whether if we want to know like these secrets and kind of like destroy like what Hollywood was building up to this point. And I think that's probably the most interesting part, where it's like after like that, it's a beautiful shot of like they open up the box and you kind of and all the secrets basically become revealed after the camera kind of like goes into that box. I don't know. Maybe you can help me out a little bit with that one. But am I right about like the whole Twin Peaks?
I actually don't know about Twin Peaks because I actually haven't seen it. But with Blue Velvet, that definitely tracks. And I would say that that's accurate. I think that there's also another blue key in the movie when the hitman hands Diana blue key at the end of the movie and says, I guess something like, when it's done, you can use this to do something. But there's also an earlier scene where the hitman or the, I guess, pimp is bringing this blonde girl into a blue truck, just the back of a blue truck. And so maybe that's the key to that blue truck.
Yeah. And the blue truck is the one that's hiding the secrets.
Yeah, it's the one it's where you get to enter, and then you become kind of a tool for the Hollywood system, almost like you're kind of run by that guy. And then there's also the blue box is also shown in the scene after this, which is the pretty much the ending of the film, where you see the woman behind the diner, the very scary looking woman behind the diner is holding a brown paper bag with the blue box in it, and it drops on the ground. And this is why I think they're from the Jitterbug contest, because the two old folks walk out of that and they're really tiny. It's really scary. They look like they're from like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or something. They run out of the blue box, and then they come to Diane's apartment and they torment her. And it's like she's almost haunted by the people that lured her to Hollywood in the first place, or the idea of her, that initial Hollywood dream that they kind of represent, is coming back to haunt her, and she just shoots herself. And that it's a crazy ending. So scary.
Crazy, upsetting, and to kind of add on to what you're saying about like how the old people kind of like come back into the picture, and why you're saying like they were the ones that kind of like held like that Jitterbug contest to begin with. I'm gonna have to like do some more like digging on that, just to see if like that could be a possibility. But I also like kind of like what I was saying, how like they're just old people that she met like originally, and the way that they come back into the picture, kind of it's very similar to like how we meet people like in our everyday life, and how they just randomly just come back into the picture at kind of like good parts and bad parts of our life. And I don't know, I just kind of like that symbolism, how just people just kind of like they just kind of wander in and out, and they just kind of go ahead.
Sorry. I also think that you could also be right, because maybe it's the guilt of those people that she was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be a Hollywood actress, I'm here to follow my dreams, and they didn't work out. And so it's almost like the guilt that she feels of like, I'm not even gonna live up to the expectation I set for myself earlier, which is represented by those people, because those were the first people that she was like, this, I'm gonna do this, and she kind of feels like she's almost let those people down, and that idea is coming back to haunt her as well.
It's like, I don't feel this way at all, but it's kind of like the goals or the promises that we give to like our parents, like, oh, I want my name to be up in lights, or I want to see myself in the credits, like to a movie one of these days, and that doesn't happen, and we kind of have to like come back to reality and like tell our parents like, yeah, this industry's hard, it's difficult.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's a beautiful way to go out, but the next scene, like you said, not so beautiful, that she just ends up taking her own life.
And she becomes that corpse on the bed.
Yeah, which all we'll have to say is like, this industry is hard and people can go through multiple experiences, but I just want to like, that's never like a way out. That's never like the situation that we should put ourselves in. But anyways, that was Mulholland Drive from 2001.
For the most,
for the most part, I don't know. I feel better after having this conversation with you, Peyton, for sure, just because I did understand some of it, but there's just so much of this film that's just so alluring, and just there's just so, and I love films, especially that when you have conversations like this, they just become better. And I feel like after this close to an hour conversation that we've had, which I'm pretty sure we can go for even longer on this, but we don't have that kind of time. I think that the longer conversations that you have, the better it makes a movie, and I think that's so true about Mulholland Drive. But do you have any final thoughts about this masterpiece?
I would just say, I mean, it is one of my favorite films. I feel like it is hard to kind of discuss on a scene-by-scene basis because the scenes don't really always follow up with each other, and I'm sure we missed a few details here and there, but for the most part, I felt like we got across the ideas that we wanted to get across, which is good. This film, it's not really, like, you're right, this is a movie that gets better with discussion, and obviously also gets better with rewatches. It's also a film to experience for yourself. It's not a movie that you know can just watch a video or a podcast recap and kind of get the grasp on it. It's truly a living thing. It's truly an experience to have for yourself and to live through for yourself, because the life that you bring to this movie is going to change it, just like every great film does. Yeah, that's what I would say. My final thought on this movie is that if you somehow haven't seen it, check it out for yourself. And if you have seen it and you feel like anything we said kind of sparked your interest or made you think of something that you didn't think of before, you should rewatch it, because I'm sure it's watchable in so many different contexts. And that's why I think it's going to be an important film for forever.
Yeah, echoing exactly like what you said there. That's why I said like this film's timeless. Like I think that word is kind of like overused like nowadays, especially with some of the modern films, but this is kind of like the definition of a timeless film. And the way David Lynch talked about this film too, when he was still alive, rest in power, David Lynch. I loved, like I mentioned, like I loved how cryptic he was with this. He didn't want to tell the audience like what this movie was about and stuff like that, because like it's up to the discussion. Like after people see this movie, like continue talking about this movie. And that's like not trying to go on a tangent, but this is why I don't have disdain for Christopher Nolan, but a modern film that I was kind of hoping that would have like this discussion, one of Christopher Nolan's films, Inception, like the whole ending of that film with like the top, like I think it was like a year after that film came out, Christopher Nolan basically went on Twitter, or I think he wrote like an op-ed or something like that.
I think it's because Michael Caine let it slip in an interview that Christopher Nolan told him that anytime his character is in the film, it's reality. And because he said that, we know that the ending is reality.
Yeah. But I wish that he kind of kept his mouth shut, just because I love it when movies can spark conversation, and this film definitely does it. But yeah. But let us know like your thoughts on Mulholland Drive in the comments down below. I'm sure many people have thoughts and probably disagree with us. And even if you disagree with us, like I think that's great. Just let us know like your thoughts on Mulholland Drive in the comments down below. But Peyton, where can people find more of your work on?
You can find me at Peyton_pictures on TikTok. You can find me at PeytonJB on Blue Sky and Instagram and those two. And Letterboxd. Yes, Letterboxd, that's the one. Take that app too seriously. Yeah, check me out. I really try to talk about films in the context of their emotional impact. That's kind of my thing, I think, as I come to find. So yeah.
And talk about Minecraft in any way possible.
Apparently, I'm never gonna stop talking about that until it's
or Trap,
because there just keeps being and Trap. If you want to hear anything, if you're interested in talking about the film Trap in any capacity, please go to my TikTok page and leave a comment. I'll make a video
Yeah.
response.
Or Trap or any 4-letter movie title, because apparently you love those. Drop and then Trap.
4 letters, 2 consonants, a vowel, and then a P specifically.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, all of the links will be in the description for Peyton. Everyone should go follow him. He's a great follow. He's very knowledgeable about film. If you're just watching this part of the podcast, I don't know why you're doing that, but you probably already figured that out because of our discussion on Mulholland Drive. If you didn't find me annoying at all during this episode, you can follow me pretty much everywhere on social media: Blue Sky, Instagram, and Skylight Social. I guess that's the new TikTok or whatever. Those are kind of like the main places where I'm at right now, because I don't know, I post a little bit of TikToks, but the uncertainty of that app is very unfortunate, and trying to find ways to talk about my love of movies like elsewhere. But Marley Loves Film is the username across all platforms. Just give me a follow wherever you're at, and I'm pretty much there. You can listen to the Real Lovers podcast anywhere where you listen to podcasts. Give us a rate and review and let us know how we're doing. And if we're doing really well, I really appreciate it if you subscribe to our Patreon for only $1. You can get access to bonus episodes and our exclusive Discord server and join our community of just like-minded individuals. They're a really fun, eclectic group of people. Just kind of, and yeah. But yeah, also, if you're watching on YouTube, give us a like the video right now. Don't you like that little animation that YouTube put on? Have you seen that? When people say like that video, and it like, I wonder if the like button is actually just like freaking out because I said like the video like multiple times. But hit that like button if you like that video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. But yeah, anyways, Peyton, with that being said, my name is Marley Silverbrand for the Real Lovers podcast, and
I'm Peyton.
And let's get back to the movies.